Jeremy Wilson. I'm out of Southern Illinois, and I'll set the stage real quick. I'm from the land of dirt, not soil. So if you think that I'm from Central Illinois and I'm farming land like the color of my shirt, that's wrong. I really farm soil about the color of my pants, and that's the good stuff. We run 1,500-acre corn, soybeans, and recreational wheat. I'll just tell you that straight up. We're winter wheat. We have it primarily because we have 40 head of cattle that we need straw and hay and other things for. We are pretty consistent running winter wheat and double crop soybeans in our area. It's pretty common. And I'm going to really try to do my very best to apply all the concepts and show real-world examples of how we've applied everything that Dr. Fulton just talked about to our own farm. And stop me at any time and I can explain that. So my day job, I've worked for Crop IMS for, gosh, 13, 14 years, and just took a role with EFC Systems out of Brentwood, Tennessee. And their products are Fieldalytics and Ag Solver. And you'll see some of their stuff, but that doesn't matter. We're more worried about our actual products, or our deliverables. Let me ask you some questions. How many people thinks we're going to get $6.50 corn, $12 soybeans, or $10 wheat back soon? I think we will. So if we don't think so, and one thing I did leave out, my dad come to me in November and decided it was time to hang it up, and so I bought half the farm. Actually, I signed the papers on Friday to buy half of the farm. So this is going to mean, these presentations mean a whole lot more now than they ever have, because now we're going to try to apply that and figure out how to do it. So if that's the case, I don't think I'm going to come back. How many of you calculate ROI on every acre of your farm? Or have you? Or work with growers that do? I'm going to tell you, at least in Illinois and other parts of where I travel and speak, that number is really low. I mean, we probably understand some ROIs on a big picture, but we really break it down and we really begin to dig through each farm and field. And I'll make the case, you know, I'm looking now and breaking down, looking at ROI in subfield zones as well. And what can I do? How can I be different? So that begs the question then, so what makes a good farmer? I asked this to my boss. I said, you know what? I feel like that I'm struggling here on ROI and how many people's looking at it. You know, I think we're out chasing yield, and yield doesn't always mean profitability. So what makes a good farmer? And he gave me 4 answers. The first 2 I didn't like so much, but I still put them here, but I'll give you all 4. Someone who understands continual improvement. If you're a grower or work with growers, how many of you think about continual improvement? Every single one? So all right, I'm not going to go with that one, but I give it there. How about someone who strives to extract value, extract every dollar of value from every piece of land they got? I don't think, that doesn't segregate them either. I think we're beginning to change them right here. Someone who knows more about their acre than their competitor knows about their acre. I think that begins to separate them. And the big one is the last one, and is my favorite. And I'll tell another story about my farm. Someone who can produce a profit from the worst acre in the county. That's what makes a good farmer. And I'll just tell you, we farm in 2 counties, Richland and Jasper County, Illinois. Richland County, we're fortunate. We're on the north end. Why my family stopped and settled where they did, I'll never, ever know. If they would have just went 50 miles north, this would have been a whole different presentation. But when you get in Richland County, I probably have some of the best soil in that county. Not the best, but I got probably some of the better soil. But when I go about a half a mile across the road into Jasper County, I'm in the worst soil in Jasper County. Absolutely no debate. I mean, we're talking probably 30, 40 bushels of corn different. So think about that. So how do I make a profit from that? I think that's what segregates them. So the tools I'm going to talk about, what I intend to lay out and go into detail, and like I said, you stop me and we'll go over. We do heavily intensive soil sampling. We variable rate apply all crop nutrition products across the farm. I'm going to show a lot of examples of that. We do variety mapping to look at yield by hybrids and profitability by hybrids, and also application data of crop protection products. I thought Jimmy's opening was very fitting today. I mean, we're in the cover crop business as well. We've been primarily no-till since 1986. If it's been dreamed up, we've probably tried it once. I'll be honest, the last 2 falls have not been our friend as it relates to cover crops, just because of conditions. You know, we got out early and got started great, had a great run into corn, and We had the drill set up for wheat, and Dad's like, I just can't go switch this thing right now to plant cover crops. He's like, we just got it all switched over. Let's just give it a couple weeks. We're gonna have those beans off. This wheat's gonna be in the ground, and we'll go plant cover crops. Well, that made it about 10 days before the sky opened up and started raining and never really quit. And we managed to get the wheat in. And to be honest, we got the wheat in about 2-day window there, about all we had to really do even tillage, let alone planting. And so we didn't get any put out this year to talk about, but we also log all that data as well. I lay this out here because some people, it seems like but when I don't, I get the question every time, why do you do it? So why do I invest in technology to collect quality data? I just got to build a history. That's all I'm after. I got to know what's happened on that farm so I can make decisions, whether it's for analysis or reporting, but more importantly, I got to understand agronomic changes. So how many growers I got in the room, just so I know? Perfect. This is even more fun. So I'm going to talk about my own farm. If I went and applied every agronomic change that someone called me about, emailed me about in the last 6 months, how great would my crops be? Probably at least 140% better than what they are today. Everyone agree? I mean, everyone says it's, oh, I can add 2% here, 5% here, 10% there. If I total all them up, I got to be getting over a couple 100% better. So I challenge you, and I put this up here, is if we're not using technology, we're not deploying the things that Dr. Fulton's talked about, do we really understand the agronomic benefit of that change we made? I'm going to say we have some ideas, we have some guesses, but that's a very critical piece as to why I do this. And Larry's here, and he wrote my article. I've had this in a presentation forever, and thank you, Larry, because I'm going to tell you a real story. Potentially increase the land value with history of quality production. I think we can increase that value in land, but I'm going to tell you a real use case. I just bought 50 acres of land that our family has farmed for 60 years, and data didn't actually increase the value of land, but let me secure at a price that I might have a fighting chance to pay for it. I mean, land in our area, I'll tell the numbers, I normally don't share it, but land in our area was running, the low end was about $5,500 to $6,000 an acre. The top end was $7,500 to $8,000, give or take. And this lady called me and she said, I know you're going to try to start farming. I want to say this. I don't want to kill you on it, but can you just give me some idea of what you think this thing's worth? So I took 14 years worth of yield data, normalized it, split it up into 5 zones, took the very best, highest yielding area of that field, and I give her $7,500 an acre, what everyone else wanted. And we stepped that price down to the very lowest area. We're also in an area that's got oil, so we deal with saltwater. Saltwater kills. I mean, there's 3 acres out of 50 that'll never raise a crop. It can't even grow a weed, let alone crop. And I valued it at the bottom. We ended up to an average, and I don't need to talk about the average, but I went to her and I said, this is what the average is. And she said, have you been fair with me? I said, well, here, this is what I did. You want your $7,500 to $8,000 out of your good stuff? I did it. But at the same time, I can't afford to pay you for the saltwater kills because I'm never going to get anything back. In the day, we settled on a price when the appraisal come back about $1,500 higher. Now, was she good to me? Yes. But did I have the data that verified why I made that decision? Absolutely. I showed her all the yield maps. Ma'am, this is what it's done. You may dream and hear about these 200 bushel acre cornfields in my neighborhood, but yours isn't one of them. And so I think that I may change this slide, Larry, so we maybe should have rewrote it. But, I still think when it comes to land purchases and even land rents, quality data has huge value. So why do I do it? And why do you need to listen the rest of the time? Everyone remembers Liebig's Law. Do we remember that? What's the law of minimums? I got to find the hole in my bucket. I got fields, I'll tell you right now. It is fertility. I've got fields that my yield drag or my hole in my bucket was my variety selection. Chose the wrong one, put the wrong thing there. But I got other fields that could be other factors. And the best example of that, I got to tell the story on him again. And we're about 100% no-till, but in the summer of 2017, we had probably one of our best farms. The yields have been continually to fall. Not big numbers, but they were just steadily going down. And I went out there in the I think it was summer of 2017, maybe 2016. Took a soil spectrometer, Could not get it in the ground much about that deep. Could not get it there. That was in July. We finally got some rains in August or September, and I finally got it to break through. And we had run cover crops on it. We'd done a lot of things, trying not to take iron. And the other fact I forgot to tell you is I'm the grain cart driver, auger cart driver, so I get blamed for everything. And so I knew I was going to get a real pedigree reading when I went to Dad with this one. But I got in the combine that fall, and I said, Dad, I really think we ought to buy a ripper. And he's like, just get out of here. He says, I'm a no-till guy. I don't want to hear it. I don't want nothing to do with it. Get out. So I got out, and I watched the yield data coming in, and it was, the trend was still there. Matter of fact, this June and July was drier than normal, and it was showing up more than ever. And I got in right at the end of the field, and I said, Dad, can we have a talk about this? If it's about the blankety-blank ripper, no. I said, well, yeah, we are. And I said, so I used a lot of examples. Long story short, I'm not buying a ripper. So we fast forward to about, I think it was November, I don't remember the date, 21st, 22nd. I'd been speaking somewhere, and my phone was on airplane mode, and I shut it off, and there was a voicemail there from him. He says, give me a call. So I called him. I said, what's up, Dad? I said, I want you to know I bought a ripper. I said, you what? He said, yeah, I bought a ripper. I said, can I ask a question? He said, what's that? I said, why'd you buy it? Real simple. I said, it is? Yep. Bought it for $5,000. It's worth $3,700.50 in scrap. Worst thing, I'm out $1,250 if you're wrong. I said, okay. Interesting approach, but thank you. Long story short, we had to rip that in 4 different directions to get completely broke through the compaction layer that we had. Incredible compaction layer. Now, how did we get that? We dealt with about 5 or 6 springs where, we didn't want to be on it. But when you're sitting out there on May 20th already and you don't have corn in the ground, sometimes you got to go. So we created that problem ourselves. We knew it, and data showed us. Fertility was good, or hybrid and variety selection. That hybrid on other places was good. It was doing what it needed to do. But there it wasn't. So that's what we're after. Because at the end of the day, if we don't know what our hole in our bucket is, how are we ever going to fix it? That's it. So the next thing people come to me and says, Jeremy, how can you afford to be involved in all this and buy all this technology and do all that? It's real simple. Let's just talk about the numbers. So this is a real hardware setup for my farm. We've got RTK steering. We've got electronic planter controls and drives, downforce, yield monitoring. Excuse me, we don't have downforce, but most of our neighbors do. We can talk about that later. But on average, a grower in my neighborhood is spending $63,600 on hardware. I don't care whether you buy it aftermarket or you bought it with that green tractor, red tractor, blue tractor, purple tractor, planter, whatever the case may be. You got close to that cost in it. So what's that look like? Everyone agree most technology, 5-year useful life probably, give or take. We got some other dinosaurs that's lived longer than that, but as a general rule, 5 years. So we go average grower in my neighborhood, neck of the woods, about 1,500 acres. We're looking at about $8.48 a year to put that hardware on there. So where am I going to get it back? Where's those numbers coming from? I'm going to tell you, take a little deeper look. I want to spend a little bit more money. And these are some numbers some people and companies offer in our area. If you want to do some intensive soil sampling, you're about $250 an acre. Training and support and hardware support, because God knows you got a lot of people in your operation. Sometimes you need that. Another $4, and then some comprehensive data analysis, another couple dollars. At the end of the day, still $8.50. So where can I get $17 back? How can we do it? And that's what I want to talk about from here. And everyone says, well, this data thing is hard, and I don't want to mess with it, or I don't want to spend the money. We're investing in technology because it makes our life easier, because it can steer itself, or we're better at planter controls. We have no problem spending $8.50 for that kind of stuff. Let's go find that other $8.50, because there's a lot of opportunity there. And why do I do it? Several people, you may have seen this before if you've seen some of my presentations. I think at the end of the day, every field I live in is in a house. And I've got soil testing and soil information that's my foundation, that sometimes I can amend it, sometimes I can change it, sometimes I can make it better, but I kind of got to live with it. The floor of my house is quality data collection. I got a whole hour presentation about, collecting good quality data, but that's all right. The 2 main walls of my house I'm going to live in is planter data and fertility application data. I think those are two very critical layers as we look at trying to really bring value and integrate technology into your farm. And we top that with a roof, which is yield data. So if there's one thing you can take home from me, if you're not doing anything in this technology space yet today and you want to start, here's pretty well where you start. I think with those 3 layers of data, we can begin to make some decisions. And I'm going to show some real-world examples of how we're applying those decisions and what we're doing to improve our return on investment. But more importantly, to be sustainable. And I'm not going to be one of them guys like, oh, you're a sustainability guy. No. You know what? I got a 13-year-old son whose only goal in life is to farm. And what can I do and what steps can I make to make sure I can carry this on till when he gets there, but more importantly, he's got the resources that he needs to do it as well. Now, I put a lot of other walls in my house. I collect a little bit of imagery, Veris data, I got scouting data. I threw tillage in there because of my ripping store, because we don't do a lot of tillage, but if we do some, we do collect it, and even crop protection applications. You can see my house is pretty well full. And am I on this side, probably as far as you can get down the road and using technology? I'm not all the way there. Believe it or not, I don't own a UAV. You may run me out, but you know, imagery, what I'm looking at is some late season NDVI stuff for some correlation to yields to begin to understand how I can maybe do some decision making off that. I don't do everything, but these are the core layers that I think I can use to bring value to my farm and to the bottom line. Because quite honestly, I need that to be able to find my minimum. What is my limiting factor to yield? So let's first talk about intensive soil sampling. We've been in this a really long time. We started that, believe it or not, in 1996. And we've continued on through that. We made some tweaks, we made some changes. We look at it a lot differently. But more importantly, if you're going to think about intensive soil sampling, who's doing intensive soil sampling already? Grid soil samples, zone soil sampling. Anyone doing much of that? A few of you? I'd ask you to take a look. I understand you got different soil types and different crops and other than that, and other things that different than what I do, but the value's still there because, you know, I'm to the point I'm tired of guessing, you know, of what a crop might produce. I've got the data that tells me what it did produce. And I think when we intensively sample that and begin to use that layer, and the question of John is, why didn't you have some yield? I've got some, I'll show you how we incorporate that. You know, technology today on our farm, let's just manage this crop nutrition better than we ever have before. I mean, whether you're hiring it done or whether you do it yourself, it doesn't matter. You know, VRA or VRT capable equipment now is readily available. You know, we're looking for a different fertilizer truck right now. And I haven't found one yet that's for sale that doesn't have the technology in it if I choose to use it. Dr. Fulton's got a great quote I stole from him a long time ago and give him full credit. Over-application of fertilizers may negatively impact the environment. Today it's important to utilize fertilizer in an efficient manner while ensuring sufficient soil nutrition for maximizing profitable yields. It took him to say it. It's what I thought for a long time, so I'll give him credit for it, but I don't know how to say it better. And I'll tell you right now, you're going to find when I get in this presentation, you're going to look at me and say, fat boy, you're a fertilizer minimalist. And you're probably right. I probably am. But I think I've tried enough to understand where that threshold is. And if you remember from Jimmy's slide, he showed the two comparisons of just cutting fertilizer dollars. Because when I look at return on investment on my farm, cutting cost gets me a lot further in trying to figure out how to increase yield. So I know there's a happy medium there, and you don't know till you try yourself, and you just got to practice. So here's some of my examples that I'm going to lay out and what my mindset is. This is my pet field here that we do all of our research in. I didn't lay everything back, but this is actually the field we ripped is this guy over here on this side. But this field is 100 acres that we do a ton of different research projects in. So we've sampled it pretty intensively. Nothing magical there. My soil tests are all pounds per acre, so bear that in mind. If you're a parts per million, guys, divide it in half. But I've got soil test P levels there that go from 219 to 28. If you can see this bright green spot here, anyone making guesses what's going on there? And don't you tell, John, I think you've heard. Actually, it was. So this farm used to supply all the eggs for the hospital and a sanitarium in the town of Olney, which is about 7 miles from there. They had more chickens than you can imagine. The lots went like right about here, quite honestly. I finally found an aerial image that's got the lots where they're at. I haven't got it digitized yet to get in this presentation, but it's amazing how that lines up. So clearly need to do something different there. But then everything's kind of all over the board. The part I left out is most of my land is rather rolling, not real rolling, but this thing happens to be flatter than a pancake. I think the total difference in this half a mile from north to south is about 3 to 4 feet, other than when something drops off in a ditch right here where I think it picks up like 5 feet of elevation difference. Just flat as a pancake. Right here, I think I got some data I'll show you later. I'll call this one spot out here that's kind of green and other things. Water is a real issue. We got a very high clay soil content. We can't get water through the top. So we got to use surface drainage. Surface drainage is a critical piece of what we do because I can't get water down through the soil profile well. 2015, here's my corn map. And I'm not bashful at all to say that my corn that year only made 99.44 bushel an acre, and I was excited as all get out that it made that much. Because that spring, the third time I planted that field, I think I got about right there before the sky opened up, and the next 7 days I got 14 inches of rain. And I think the last time I planted was on about June the 6th or 7th, and I wasn't going to get to do it again. Matter of fact, I didn't get a chance. So this big pocket you see here, I told water's a problem. I'm not even sure, I didn't even know there was a corn plant standing there until the combine went through it. I mean, I knew it was there, but there wasn't very many. 2016, life got a little better. We can grow really good soybeans, and we did there that year, 56, almost 57 bushel an acre. Ironically, look what's popping up again. You see that little red spot again? This, we won't talk about what that orange line is. I'm not the planter driver, remember, so I'm sure I did something wrong, but planter driver kind of had a little problem there, but he won't admit it. And he's my dad, so I won't pick on him too much more. So from that, we take here, and now we begin to pull all that together. So I said I don't want to guess what a crop's going to make anymore. So this map, what it represents is simply taking what my crop removal was, combined with my soil test data, to develop me a variable rate application map for DAP. We run all DAP because we're all spring applied crop nutrition, because we want to buy cheap nitrogen. I mean, you buy nitrogen and DAP for pennies a unit as compared to anhydrous ammonia. We're all 100% anhydrous ammonia as well. But in this example, that's what it would be if I didn't worry about anything else. But here's what we really did. So I talked to you about trying to do the right things in fertility. If you remember, our P test up here was extremely high. It was extremely high right here. So here's the real application of that. Even though we had crop removal, and we know what that was, and we took crop nutrition out of that, because of those high soil tests, we don't apply any P on fields greater than 70% or 70-pound test. Parts per million, 35 for you folks. So we apply no product whatsoever. Are we perfect at fixing that problem? No. Are we bringing it down slowly? Yes. We also, I didn't say it, we're in an area that's notoriously higher in phosphorus than we are anything else, and everyone believes it's still the rock phosphate we spread 50 years ago that's still trying to break down. I don't know. I know what happened right there. About 400 chickens solved that problem, so I don't know what happened to the rest of it. So that's what we really apply. And you know, as I give these presentations, like, you mean you put nothing on? No. I've got everything I need available already in my soil, and let's do the right things. And you know, Dr. Fulton's dealing with in Ohio as much as anyone with, you know, that Lake Erie watershed and what they're trying to do. And you know, taking this mindset has reasons why it makes sense. And you know, more importantly, if you look at that map, I mean, if we were in a normal, a person that's not using precision ag and intensive sampling like us, a normal grower in my part of the world would probably put on about 175 to 225 pounds of DAP. Ironically, if you look, I'm averaging 198. I'm putting it in different spots. I'm putting it where I feel like I'm going to utilize that investment the best I possibly can. I'm still putting on about the same amount, just relocating it in the places I need it. I couldn't help myself. This is not a real test, but this field over here on the right, all my neighbors and most people I talk to and present, they want to just pull 10-acre composite samples. Just go out every 10 acres, pull one core, maybe GPS low points, maybe not. So I just took my data set and went averaged them and said, all right, what would this look like if I would have maybe did it the same way? And so what you see over here on your left would be those points if I'd done it in 10-acre grids. Here's my standard samples that I told you before. Anything shining out to you? Because if you look, the average is still the same. I'm still averaging 58. Well, I guess I'm up a little bit. 54.4 or 58.4 and 58.7. Does anything stand out to you? Class participation is welcome. Anyone see anything? Look at what I miss. What here? I have a spot here that's not nearly as bad as what this average turned out to be. Oh, but lo and behold, this little spot over here, I just lost that. I lost some really good soil tests here that I probably don't need to be applying the same amount. Do I need to remind anyone what the economics look like of growing a crop? I can tell you what it is for Southern Illinois and on this farm. Soybeans is not a good idea, and corn is even a worse idea right now. And I think the same holds true with whatever crops we're planting. And if that's the case, what's it cost me losing some of that stuff and not being able to pick it up? So everyone says, where's our value at? What's it mean? I'm going to tell you, I'm going to show you the numbers. I'm not going to save a fortune on fertilizer. So if you look at the two, so my standard map I showed you first, that map called for 10 ton of DAP, and this is my local price. I called about a month ago. It's $5.16 a ton with my application cost. If I use that same retailer to apply it, without holding out the 70-pound test, I'd have spent $58.32. Where I held out my 70-pound test, which I really did, $51.12. If I just would have went and flat rate that, took whatever university you want to use with my P-test and my yield goal, I would have applied 11 ton at $5,156. I didn't save any money. And I'm not, and some of these maps look different. I can tell you, I've changed, I've used a different algorithm. Now I'm using a different rec than I was before, and these numbers come closer together. I'm not in the middle of this game to save fertilizer. I'm in the middle of best utilizing that fertilizer dollar that I possibly know how. And credit to my dad, we went to breakfast this past Saturday morning, and we were sitting there beside an input crop suppliers, one of their custom rig guys, and somewhere in the middle of breakfast, this guy looked across and said, "Wade, aren't you the guy that does all that VRT stuff in your neighborhood?" And he says, "Yeah, I am." "Why do you do that? That crap don't work." I about exploded. I kept my cool for, I'm going to say, about 18 seconds, maybe 25 if I was lucky. But in the middle of that, my dad looked at him, and I won't say his name. I don't want to get him in trouble. He says, "You know, Steve," we'll call him Steve for now. He says, "You know, Steve, you can think what you want to think, but I know one thing for sure, that I believe the technology works. I own a truck that I watch it work. But more importantly, when I go to bed every night this spring after I've spread fertilizer, I know I best utilize my fertilizer dollar, that I know how to utilize it. You may not like it, but I see value." And then I kind of went off on a rant, and I won't do that here. But too many people say, "Well, I'm going to start doing this because I'm going to save this or I'm going to save that." And I don't want you to take from me from a minute that I think I'm saving any money on fertility. I don't think that I am. I'm better placing it where I can get the most return on that investment. And I'll quit preaching. And just to prove my point, we looked at a data set across Crop IMS, who I worked for years and still do a little bit. 40,000 acres, average ROI of intensely managing fertility was about $1.56. So about 56% return on investment. So let's get to the fun stuff. Comprehensive data analysis, and I think this is really critical. And why do we do it? And why is it an important piece of our farm? I think when I look at comprehensive data analysis, why do I do it? I believe deep down that this data will give you a better understanding how agronomic changes have affected the overall field profitability. And if you haven't figured it out, field profitability is a pretty big deal in my world, because that's what I think we need to be successful. But more importantly, it helps us quantify the variability of fields. How many of you guys that are growers know that spot in the field that's going to be good, that spot in the field that's going to be bad? We all know that. I mean, how many times have we been out there? "Oh yeah, we're getting ready to get into this. It's a wet year, so we're going to get nothing." But are we letting data drive the decision to understand how good the goods are and how bad the bads are? That's my challenge to you. And how can we incorporate precision ag technology to help you quantify that? I just heard a presentation yesterday, and I couldn't say it any better. And I just drew a blank on the guy's name. I never met him before. First time I heard him speak. But he made the comment that he said, there was 15 acres of about a 160 right beside his house, right at the end of his driveway. He said in the good years, he said when the rest of the field does well, he says, I got just kind of okay yields there. When the whole farm burns up, I got 250 bushel corn in that wet hole. And then everywhere else is kind of somewhere in the middle. And he says, it wasn't until I really went and analyzed the data for about 6 years that I come to realize that in the good years, I was making 250 bushel corn and making a lot of money. But when I averaged it across and realized, and I think he said he had 6 years worth of data, 1 year he had that, 3 years he had, I think he said 40 bushel an acre corn, and the rest of the years was just about average. When the long and short of it was, the 250 bushel corn that 1 year wasn't enough to make up what he'd lost for all the rest of it. Now what am I going to do with it, he said, is his comment. And I'll take you, I don't have the example in this presentation, I'll tell you I'm using some CRP programs, just taking some of it out of production. If I'm losing money year after year after year, and I've got a revenue stream, that's important. And John already stole my thunder, but I also believe technology is critical in completing on your fields and farm trials. I love the universities, they do great research, and you cannot take that away, but there's huge value in looking at things in your own fields, in your own farms, in your own operations, because you may not, you know, they can research something for us and tell us about it, but your implementation of that or how you apply it to your farm may be just a little bit different. And how do you know that impact to your farm? I'm also a firm believer in more years of data equals more questions that we can ask. And what can we learn? And last, you can't get a multi-year data set like some examples I'm going to show you here in a little bit unless you assemble or start collecting the first one. How many people is collecting some data today? Yield data, planting data. Okay, so we got some. So you're getting some collected. Great. So I'm going to go through a real application of how I'm using data here and driving some decisions in some of in your field trials. It's about a 60-acre field. It's kind of a unique mess. So we have farmed and owned this 14 acres for a good while. A neighbor has owned this 10 acres and we had farmed it for a while. A different neighbor had the 40 in the middle. Well, over a combination of different things, we got the ability to buy it all and made it one, I don't know how many acres it is, 54 acres, and we brought it all together. And in our area that Monsanto was sponsoring a couple years ago, maybe 3, this drive for 100 bushel soybeans. And they were looking for all these places, and we were going to put nitrogen on them, we're going to put fungicides on them, we're going to put insecticides on them. And Dad wanted to put it in this field. And so they wanted to take about, I think it's around 5 to 7 acres out of a whole field to do it. So I looked at this and said, all right, where should I put that? I was looking for some pretty consistent soil types, maybe as a foundation. Made it look like it ought to kind of go up here. But then I went and done a multi-year yield analysis. So this was actually about 6 years worth of yield data normalized. And real quickly I found out I better give this nonsense up here because the only place I had really consistent steady yields was across the bottom. So if I was going to be fair, I wanted to be as fair as I could possibly be. So I said, all right, let's do that. So then in 27, that's what we did. We put that big trial down here in this bottom 10 acres. At first look, it was like, oh wow, this might be onto something. We might learn something. I don't remember what the average was now. 60 bushel was the average across the entire field. We go a step further, and this is really hard to see, and please forgive me. I went and split out just this yield data at the bottom. I took the ends off because that's not fair to calculate. In the area where I put all that stuff and done all those great things, my yield average was 59.89. But when I looked at the entire field and left that block out, I'm at 63.73. So sometimes just the visual side of data doesn't tell us what we need to know. At the end of the day, that didn't work for us. We know why. It's our own fault. We made some decisions and didn't apply the products when we should have. We did it again. We brought a little bit of yield to soybeans, but I can tell you right now it wasn't enough to spend the kind of money we spent on it to try to figure it out, and needed a lot of data to be able to validate that. Everyone makes fun of me. It says, why do you collect application data? And this is a pretty easy example. fungicides on soybeans, corn and soybeans both. And I don't have any 2018 data processed. I need to for this presentation. Here's an example where we logged some. This is not my farm. This is a neighbor that let me share this. Here's a soybean trial where we treated them 2016, I think, again, with fungicide. Treated area, 66.69. Untreated area, 61 bushel. So, 5 bushel an acre. I don't know what the soybean price was at that time. Clearly, paid the bill. I'll tell you the story about 2018 and real quickly. Another example, that was soybeans. This is on corn, or excuse me, these are both soybeans. Another case where we've done a treated and untreated. In this case, there's about four bushel difference. If you combined it all together, there's only about a 2 bushel difference. So a little bit about 2018 in Illinois. For the first time in our life, in southern Illinois, we never replanted a kernel of corn or kernel of soybeans. Can't even imagine. I don't think I'll ever see it again, but it was exciting once. We got out to about June, 20th, 25th. Corn's looking amazing. 4th of July rolls around. We got corn that's tasseling now. And I mean, every neighbor far and wide is spraying fungicide faster than you can ever imagine. I mean, it wasn't, and Dad had called me. I'd been on the road speaking, and he's like, have you been in these fields? I said, yeah, I've been in them, Dad. There's nothing to spray. I mean, we got nothing there to go after. And he's like, yeah, I know, but, we just need to do something. I said, we what? He's like, well, there's not a neighbor in 2 counties that's not sprayed every acre, and you're just telling me not to do it. And I said, well, I'll come down Saturday, and we'll go walk. I'll bring pictures, so you know what we're looking for, and we'll see if we can find something to spray. Because we had about 2-3 days left there that if we wanted to pull the trigger, we needed to do it. We did it, and I mean, we walked cornfield after cornfield and soybean field, and I'm like, Dad, if you just want to spend money, give me the $28 an acre, and I'll throw it in the bank, and hopefully I'll give you more back in 6 months. And long story short, he finally gave in, and we didn't spray a single thing. And all summer, the neighbors are like, oh, just wait till you get into your yield data. When they spray with planes, all your end rows are going to be out of this world. You're going to tell which way the wind was blowing because you're going to have this big, huge yield difference. Across 683 acres of corn, you know how many fields I found a yield difference is because of the drift of fungicide? You want to make a guess? 1. I got 1 field that you can clearly, there is zero debate. You can see how hard the wind was blowing because the yield data's kind of got this little S that goes right along the end. I'm like, all right, Dad, here's where I messed up. And so my question is, if we're not logging this data and we're not keeping track of it, how do we know? How do we figure it out? So that's the second thing I probably want you to take home for me. Maybe you don't want to get as passionate about me and get as deep into it as analyzing it as I am, start collecting it. We never get a chance to go back. And if we've got those layers of data and we have questions, we can go back and look. Because I can tell you in all the fungicide applications we had done, I don't know if we're not pushing yield hard enough. I don't know if it's because we're like the never ready farm, just so you know. So when everyone else goes and farms, we're maybe ready about 3 days later. So our corn is normally in the ground a couple days later than a majority. I don't know if it's a pushed off in planting date. I'm just struggling to find the kind of yield responses in these fungicide applications that all these people are talking about. I've run numbers of trials. I mean, I've seen some yield bumps. Yes, I'm not going to lie. There's yield bumps. But when we look at the cost, and it just takes data to know that. Dr. Fulton took this one from me as well, but I'm still going to share it. So in our soybeans, we've been a farm that's been a solid seed or run a drill or air seeder type of environment for years. Dad was just hung up on the fact that we need to plant 175 to 180,000 seeds per acre even when we went to a 15-inch row planter. Could not win this battle. Unfortunately for him, Dad was sick one day, or for about 3 days actually, and he wasn't around. And me and my cousin, who I'll be farming with now, we decided, by God, we're going to prove him wrong. So we went out in this soybean field while he wasn't around. We got control of the planter. We went and put this trial in, clear through the field, all these different populations. We didn't go low enough, according to Dr. Fulton, so John, I'm going to have to redo it, I guess. We stopped at 130,000, went all the way to 180,000, and put it in these blocks to take a look at it. You look at the yield data, nothing really shines out. More importantly, there's the results. Absolutely no statistical difference between 130,000 seeds per acre and 180,000 seeds per acre. So what's that mean? Well, it only took me about 3 tries showing it to my dad to give in. I mean, we're down now, we're planting 140. It's as low as we can get him. I don't know if you know what it costs to plant new soybeans, but that's, you mean 40,000 seeds per acre is a big savings to the farm. And it took data for him to really understand it and really get it. Here's another, I mean, this is an example where if you don't want to have a file that does it for you automatically, it's simply a couple minutes to push a button and change it and take a look at it and capture the data. So did I show you one place yet where you can bring value from technology? Anyone seen it yet? Oh my, John, I'm in trouble. I got 30 minutes to turn this around. Another fine example, this is, and here again I hid the hybrids because it doesn't matter. I'm a guy that hates split planter. If we do 2 hybrids or 2 varieties in a field, I want them in blocks because I want to be able to manage them. So, you know, maybe it's something with a trade or that I need to go in and rescue treat. I think this is also 2016. Yeah, it is 2016. I'm actually, I'm spraying this day and my phone rings and it's my dad. He says, Jeremy? I said, yeah. He said, how is it that you set this monitor up when you want to put hybrid 1 in one side of the planter and hybrid 2 in the other side of the planter? I said, it doesn't matter, Dad. We don't do it that way. Remember, we put it in blocks. He said, no, you're too late, fat boy. It's in the planter. Now tell me how to set it up. I said, all right. So we did. Kudos to him. He done a great job. He got the monitor set up. Now we fast forward to fall. Then you remind you I'm the auger cart driver once again. And I've got the planting data loaded on my iPad, and I'm watching it. And we pull into the field, and I mean, you can see this difference all year. Hybrid, I don't remember which one's which. I'll show, when I see the data next, I can tell you. But one of the 2 hybrids was, well, you know the one, the new Rockstar hybrid or variety. This is the hybrid that's going to beat anything we've ever had, and you can plant it anywhere, and, you know, it's just it. Am I the only one that has seed dealers that call with that story? I must be. So that's what we did. We're in there harvesting. He's like, man, can you believe how good this new hybrid is? I said, Dad, I think you're wrong. He's like, oh no, I remember where I planted it. When I got here this spring, I pulled in on the north side. I went down along the north side, went and done all the end rows, and I went back and come across, and I know this is the good one. I said, okay. So as I start pulling the yield data, and it's coming into my iPad, and I mean, this thing is like, this new guy, he's bad. I mean, he's really bad. And the whole time we're harvesting this field, he's like, oh, man, I'm so glad that seed decision I made. This hybrid's incredible. Let's fast forward to the next page. The old Rockstar that's going to, or the new Rockstar that's going to beat everybody is hybrid number 1. It was only 21 bushel worse than the old Faithful that we had for 15 years. So the whole time this is going on, Dad's like, you're going to process this data tonight and call me, right? No. My dad goes to bed at 9 o'clock. If we're in the field, we might get him till 9:30, but I guarantee you by 9:30 he's at the house if we want to work later. 10:30, I get a text message from my dad. You got that data processed yet? Well, I did. I said, nope, I don't have it done. I'll have it done for you in the morning. I get down there, we get that the morning. I said, well, I got it done. I said, exactly how many bags of that corn did you order, that new stuff? He's like, well, I ordered about 1/3 of the farm. He says, and I'm glad I did. It was so good. And I laid that map out. I said, well, here's your new guy. I can't tell you exactly what he said. But long story short, he picked up the phone that afternoon and called the seed dealer and changed an order. Did we plant that hybrid in 2017? Absolutely. Did we take this data and process it and figure out some soil types? Because I'll be honest, if I back up, I don't know if I can, I don't have the yield map. It's too hard to see up there at the top. But long and short, there's 2 soil types out there that actually the new Rockstar beat the old Faithful. And we repositioned those few bags. But I'll tell you, 2017 is pretty rough on that new guy as well. 2018 was a little better. But long and short, if we would have had 300 acres at 20 bushel an acre less, what's those numbers? 6,000 bushel of corn, even as cheap as it is right now. Easy figure, $18,000, $20,000. That $63,000 technology bill just got cut by 1/3. Here's where it all comes together. And this is where I think is some really important things we can look at. This is still the same field. I carried the same guy across. This is my return on investment. So anywhere that's green, anything to this yellow, I made money. Anything orange and red, I lost money. Long and short, so I had about an 8% ROI. Commodity price, I used $3.90 on this one. The ironic thing is I normalized the yield across that, and on corn I ended up with only 118 bushel average. I would have thought it was a little higher than that. Last year it was higher. But anyway, running those numbers, and I only put $100 land cost in it right now, but long and short, I made $37.40 an acre. I think the next piece of this, and it's really critical of that, is taking a look at this map. So right here, if you look at this map and these areas we're looking at, this is how much I have to increase my yield, or how many dollars an acre I need to increase to break even, and this is how many bushel I need to break even. You know what, long and short, I'm never gonna get 33 bushel more out of that wet hole out of the bottom. Even in the very best years, I'm not gonna do it. So anywhere that's not colored in, I made money there, so I didn't need to do anything else to be profitable. So my question to you is, what do I do? I'm gonna make the case. We're evaluating here, if we get another CRP program, of making this a wider waterway. You know, if some things come back like quail buffers we had a few years ago, probably put some quail buffer strips in there. We gotta do something, because I can tell you right now, there's not enough yield potential right there. The other decision I make, how can I cut my cost? Do I need to be planting as many seeds per acre, whether it's corn, soybeans, even put wheat there? Do I need to still be planting that same population? I'm going to make the case maybe not. But the critical thing is, here's where I'm losing my money. How do I fix it? So more importantly, I need to take the data and back up and say, where is the hole in my bucket? Because you know what? I got a big gaping hole right here. I got a pretty big gaping hole right here, and let's figure out what it is. In some cases, I can maybe fix it. Some cases, I can't. If I had this analysis of my own personal farm, I could show you a piece there. I put it in CRP this fall. I tried to get more in than what I got, but because it had to qualify for a buffer strip, I don't remember. There's only like 3 things that I might qualify for, and I ended up with a ½ acre that qualified out of the 2 acres I tried to get in it. Because when I run this analysis, this red area here, that whole thing was brighter red than that. I mean, I'll tell you the straight numbers on that ½ acre I put in for the last 5 years. On average, I've been averaging about $397 of hard cash putting that in. And over that same time period, I was averaging $147 worth of crop sales. So think about it. That's losing a couple $100. I got it in CRP. I got $147 an acre cash rent payment. So if it was a full acre, we'll do it for easy figure. I just put $350 the bottom line of my 20-acre field. That's real cash. I can take my wife to a pretty nice dinner for that. And I don't have to deal with the nonsense, the little finger I had to get in there to farm anyway. I think some of these harsh decisions need to be made on more fields on our farm. I can't tell you what exactly the program is that we moved to do that, but I feel like that's where it's headed. How many people have to cash rent land? Illinois, that's getting to be a big deal. So here's my same numbers. So here, I'm going to guess that my average this year can be 138 bushel an acre on that field. I think I'm going to get 357. Oh, crap. I can only pay $72 an acre for that. Now, I'll be honest, I do have $100 worth of land cost in that first analysis, so you can throw another $100 on that. But still, that's the harsh reality. You know what? I'm going to go back to 118 just like I thought, and my 390, I only got $39 more to play with there. And what I didn't say, and I'll back up 2 slides so you can see it, what's built into this analysis, and I figured I better say it since Brian walked in and I just told him what I did. So not only did I take real yield data off that field that had been post-calibrated for accuracy, but I also loaded application data from my fertilizer truck, application data from my sprayer, and assigned cost to those products that really went on at a variable rate. So if my truck, if I shot for 300 pounds, but I really put 450, well, that grid cell, wherever that landed, got that cost assigned to that area. So it's going beyond of just saying, I just spent this much on this field. You know, in that case, I've got as-applied data. Now, I got an 80-foot spreader, so I mean, I only got 80-foot grids to work with. And you know, planter's 40 foot, so I get a little tighter grids on, same way with seeds. So I took my actual planting population and assigned cost at cost per seed. So I built all my precision ag collected data, or digital ag data collected, John. I'm trying to get rid of that word. And it's built into that. That led to this, to make me understand what I can pay for that land. So, we still got time. I'm going to hurry. So I think that there's some emerging technologies that are going to help me produce even more return on investment. Do I have any more questions about what I've done? Because this is all futuristic stuff, but I can talk about it. Because I think there's some real opportunities. Any questions? Wow, Brian, you got the quietest group I've had in a while. Whew. But lunch is on the way. I think emerging technologies we got coming down here that's going to really increase some of my ROI, some new sensors. IoT, has anyone talked about IoT this year, this conference? Internet of Things, how everything becomes connected. I think there's some real opportunity there in robotics. This precision planting smart firmer, I'm still going to leave it for one more year because I think there's a few enough of them out. I think it's still an emerging technology. I threw this Veris card out here, the UC3 with on-the-go soil pH and organic matter. These two are doing somewhat the same things but different and in a different way. I'm seeing some real value, and I got one example of this soil pH thing for sure. And then on-the-go soil sampling. I can't believe I did this, but I added it because I think as we look at some of this soil optics that's coming out, some of this gamma ray technology and how they're getting the price of that down, I really think that there's going to be some pretty positive ROIs on that, at least on my farm. I know I still got to pull some traditional samples to ground truth that sensor, and I'll get to that in a second. I put these out here, and I'm not going to try to click the links. I've got about 6 links. Brian told me he would share these with you later when we got done. Veris, you probably all know them, but Soil Optics is one I think I'd give a look. I'll just tell you straight up until about 3 months ago, their price was a little out of line, that probably it wasn't going to work. But I just got a price sheet again from them yesterday now, and if you want to commit to like 5,000 acres of that thing, we're getting down to a couple, $2.50 an acre.
How's that looking for you? I've run in Oklahoma. I'd like to hear what you've seen on your farm.
They finally just got it cheap enough I'm willing to try. So get back with me. If you got some feedback, good or bad.
We ran, so with Weckler to OSU,
yep.
we had a joint project. We ran 3 soil sensors plus a Veris. So Soil Optics, Geo Prospector,
yep.
and another unnamed.
Yep.
They're all giving numbers. We had over 3,000 soil samples. I couldn't find correlation with any variable that we measured.
Okay.
Or yield.
Yep.
So there's something there. We got to find what it's correlated to and is there a deliverable.
Yep.
At least for the Great Plains, I haven't figured out what they're correlated to.
I'll just tell you what I'm really think I'm after with it and why I threw it up here. Soil pH and organic matter.
Unrelated.
I know. I'm not telling you I had the answer yet, but I think we got to continue to watch it.
Yeah, I agree.
And I'm never, good enough is never good enough for me, but I really think around organic matter as I look at nitrogen models, I might begin to settle because we're not even good enough right now unless you want to get to 1 acre or quarter acre grids like he's talking about. Why does soil pH matter to me? So here's some statistical analysis. This is my field I told you about. See that little thumb right there? It's now in CRP. It's the happiest day of my life. Actually, I wanted this whole piece in here and I wanted that whole piece in here, but USDA told me no. But long and short, so this management unit map, what you're looking at is anything in this green, yellow, and first brown is at least average yield and stable through 12 years worth of multi-year analysis. Ironically, this is the soil pH data I captured off the Veris machine. You kind of see a trend here. See that? Kind of scary. What even makes it more scary is look at the raw points. So I didn't say it yet in my presentation, but 80% of my yield drag comes in the outside 120 feet of my field. Always been told never sample out there because of the limestone effect or whatever the reason. We got millions of them. Got a whole presentation entitled, Can You See the Forest Because of the Tree? And it's all because of this. Because I'll tell you, I pulled that Veris cart going out after organic matter because by golly, I was going to build me a VRT nitrogen map and I was going to feel good about it. When I'm running the cart, I'm seeing these reds, I'm watching the data come in, and I'm like, oh my God. I just think I found my limiting factor to yield. And it's all because of data points. If I had laid these together, and it's going to take so much work, I quit, I started. But if you kind of lay these across, you'll see anywhere I pulled a sample and I knew the soil pH, I'm a rock star at fixing it. Because I can tell you, if you haven't noticed, I'm the best at soil pH, I'm second at phosphorus, and did you see a single potassium map in my presentation? No, because I suck at it. I don't even want to talk about it. Every single thing I've tried as it comes to soil K, I've done wrong. So, when I look at this and look at data points, I fixed it where I didn't have no, I mean, I've got points out here in the red that's 1 point lower from a real soil test. I got some 5s out there. Guess what I didn't say? I got weed pressure problems in the outside 120 feet of my field. So if you go back to your soil science and look at a soil test of a 5, look at some macronutrients we're tying up. Are we getting soil applied activity from herbicides to act the same because I'm that low a pH? I'm going to say probably not. We've actually run about 300 acres of our 1,500 acres. We found that same trend in every single field. And you know what my dad did this fall and this winter? We got 350 ton of lime sitting on the ground right now in our barn lot. And by golly, the first time it gets dried up a little bit, he's going and spreading 100 foot around every single field. Because the cost is low. I mean, we haul most of it ourselves. We're looking at maybe $10 an acre to give it a shot. Even at this cheap corn, it only takes 3 bushel. Yeah, that's 2017 map. And these little green blobs are places they've already got networks built and areas that they're already using it. Consumer electronics folks and retailer and manufacturers, they're all using it already. That's what's causing all these to pop up. Ironically, look at the change. I just pulled this map last Monday. And as you can see, those little green blobs are getting bigger about everywhere we go, and these networks are expanding. I'll just tell you, I'm not going to go into full details of what I want to do, but I believe if everything will work out for this spring, I'm shooting to have a weather station, I'm shooting to have a rain gauge, thermometer, and relative humidity sensor on every one of my fields. If it feels longer than a half mile, I'm probably going to put 2 and be able to stream that data in, because I told you I'm kind of passionate about nitrogen, trying to figure that out. I'm looking at a nitrogen model. I think I need to understand weather. We look up at bug pressure and weed pressure and all those other things. There's just a lot of things that I'm just seeing. You know, a lot of these weather models are getting a lot better, but there's still holes and gaps in it. And I really think I can bring more revenue and return on investment by adding some of those. Robotics, I won't take a long time. I'll just put these out here. If you want to take a picture of the screen, you can, or if you want to jot them down real quick. I hate to say it, but I think robotics is going to really change things. I won't tell you exactly I know what they are, but I tell you go out and Google search nanotechnology at first. Check out Oz, Nino, and Ted. I think Ted's the most likely winner in what we know as row crop today. They've got him up where Ted now can handle a 4-row planting attachments. Think about that for a minute. It's a moving target to get a cost on what Ted's going to cost. I know that stories have been floating that he's going to be no more than a 300-horse tractor. Okay. It's probably going to have to soften up a little bit before I can tell you exactly what it is. But I can tell you from an agronomic standpoint, and Dr. Shear's got the research, and John didn't talk about it today, but I'm all about moving back to 4-row equipment and running swarms of equipment. Because I got a compaction problem. I told you that already. I fixed one of them. I'm all about if Ted could run a 4-row planter, I'd happily, at a cost-affordable price. I'd be completely happy to have 4 of them to equal my 16-row corn planter right now. I wouldn't even think twice about it. Because it makes so much sense from an agronomic standpoint, because I'm getting so much weight off that field. Check out this Robotics. That's the one that's doing the weeding and thinning right now. It's kind of a 4-wheel device with a solar panel. It's got an arm that's going around and thinning crops and picking weeds and pulling all that. Cost on this guy is softening up and doing some spraying with it. I think it's one to watch. And you can't do a presentation without talking Blue River Technology, this little company that John Deere happened to buy. That, I think, has some real potential. And, you know, I haven't talked about my weed problems, but I got this nasty thing called water hemp that is now getting some Roundup, I won't call it resistance yet, but Seems to be less responsive to Roundup of killing it, which we're all Liberty Link soybeans. We've, knock on wood, we're still having good luck because we managed Liberty really well of getting that guy, but I think there's some potential there. We're already seeing it happen. I'm gonna make it. I end my presentation with 2 slides on every one, and this one's number 1. So did anyone have to read Alice in Wonderland when he was coming through school? Oh, wow, this is the best crowd I've had. So does anyone remember when Alice comes to the fork in the road and there's the Cheshire cat sitting up in the tree? Remember what happened? Alice looks up to the cat and says, which way should I go? And the cat says, well, Alice, where do you want to go? And Alice says, well, I don't know. So the cat says it doesn't really matter. So I want to challenge you, if you want to take a little more difficult road and the challenging road that I've talked about in this whole technology, you know, whether it's integration or deployment, whatever you want to call it in your operation, I think there's some real opportunity there. Because I'm past the day that I want to sit here and look at another binder full of books and pretty pictures and maps that I can go back and look at. I'm more about turning it into dollar signs and understanding ROI. And I hope I've given at least one nugget of information that you can apply to your farm about how we can take technology once integrated into your operation and bring return on investment. Because your house of data is very important. You can't get it built if you don't start the process. So steps to success, I think very first, and John didn't mention this either, is develop a digital strategy for your farm. I finally built one. I got one all done. I should have shared it. I figured he had it, so I didn't share. I think that's the first step. Second step, pick a field or 2 that you'd like to find a way to improve. Don't go across the whole farm first. As much as I'm ate up with it and think that's the way it needs to go, don't start that way. We don't need a failure. Pick 1 or 2, and then make sure everyone in your organization that works on your farm understands why you're doing it. And this is what I'm after. Because it only takes 1 or 2 people that aren't bought in to run the whole thing for everybody. I didn't get to talk about Steve that works for my dad enough. He's the hardest guy I've ever had to get bought in, but he's finally bought in. Steve's the guy that can break the anvil, but thank God he can put it back together. So it's been a challenge, but that's really important. And I put this out here, is if you think this is more than you can handle, don't be afraid to ask for help. You got incredible resources right here in Okstate. You know, Brian Arnell sitting in the back of the class. I was going to call you out whether he's here or not. If you reach out to people like him or other people in your area that's, you know, at least dipping their toe in the water, because you can't get to where you want to be if you don't start. So in summary, the technology and data collection brings value to my farm and positive ROI. Think about how it can be applied to yours to do the same thing. Don't be afraid to consider new technologies and services, but at the same time, be sure it brings ROI to your farm. Because we can go buy all the widgets and gizmos and software and services that you can ever imagine, but if we don't understand that return on investment that comes to our farm and we can't document that return on investment, we're going backwards in the operation. And last but not least, don't be afraid to partner with trusted service providers and to understand that ROI of technology and data on your farm. And now's a great time to start. If you aren't doing it already, let's get started. With that, I'll end here. You probably think that I'm all crazy and nuts and I need to go back to Illinois, but that's okay. I hope you picked up a little bit of something, and I'll just say, even as weird as it may be and whatever you're doing, don't ever give up. Because if you can't tell, I love to eat, and so thank you for what you do for agriculture and feeding our country as cheap and effectively as possible. And with that, I've got 4 minutes for questions. I think as a general rule, I think we're still okay. I'm beginning to see some things that's making me scratch my head. But today I'm still, and to be honest with you, I wish if I could have redone my ripping deal, I wish I would have taken an area that I would have not ripped, but run another piece of tillage equipment in there to compare the two. Because Dad's standing back here going, well, you know, cover crops is really opening this up, and that's what's getting it done. We just had better mixing of our crop nutrition that's laying at the top 2 inches of the soil. That's why the yields are getting better. So I would lie to you if I tell you I don't feel like I'm seeing a little bit of stratification in that upper couple inches, but I don't feel yet today it's an impediment to yield.
Depends. I mean, so we got a stratification. Even in our stuff, we stratify.
Yep.
Ideally, depends on who you talk to from the Corn Belt. There's 2 frames of mine and no-till corn. Some of the gurus will tell you take an 8-inch sample and you knock off the top 4 inches, and that's what you base your application off of, because corn roots are less stratified in surface. Corn roots will still get in surface, especially when you have rainfall that Jeremy has. In a more dryland environment, a little bit deeper, tends to pay. In a wheat crop, I've got absolute proof that I can surface supply P&K all day long in a wheat crop, even phosphorus and potassium in season in a no-till wheat crop, and it will get you every ounce of it. But wheat's got much more fibrous, much more surface root system, and it'll be the same way. Cotton's a different story. I tend to think cotton is going to be, stratification cotton might be a little bit more of a concern, especially in a dryland environment.
And he may have just hit on a very good point why we're not seeing it as much. And Brian and I have talked about this before, but in almost every, I'm going to say 80% of our fields has winter wheat in the rotation somewhere. And I wonder if I'm helping my stratification issue just from what he said, because I'm running a wheat in there that's pulling those nutrients out, that I'm not getting as much stratification as people in my area who don't have wheat in that rotation. I mean, I still, and Brian and I have not done talking yet, I'm still looking at potassium on wheat. I still believe I need to do something because I'm seeing some potassium deficiencies. I mean, it's not wholesale. I don't think it's a deal I need to go, cover every acre every year. But, I'm running soybeans followed up by wheat, followed up by double crop soybeans. I've got 3 potassium-hungry crops back to back to back to back. And so,
Are you pulling straw from your wheat too?
in some of it, yes. Yeah. And so the other piece I left out of this whole conversation, which fits in right here, I said I'm really bad at potassium management. The question I can't get answered yet, and I'm almost ready to completely overhaul my soil sampling scheme. I'm a fall sampling guy, so we'll pull cores after we harvest. Those will go into Rex for the following spring. My question is we're still putting the same amount of nutrients into a kernel. So a kernel of corn, that hadn't really changed. Soybean hadn't changed, wheat hadn't changed. But my question is, are some of these new higher yielding environments pulling more out of my soil that's still tied up in stober that's not returned back to the soil when I'm pulling my test in the fall? Because if my soil K tests are as low as the test really look like, I ought to be showing a potassium deficiency in every single crop I ever plant. And other than wheat, I don't hardly ever see it.